The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
And welcome back to another episode of The Credit Authority. Once again, I am your host, Rhonda Kulch, and I am so glad that you joined us today. We always want to start our segment by thanking our sponsors. Thank you so much to Equity First. If you are experiencing credit and or financial challenges, whether for yourself or for your business, consider reaching out to any one of their trained professionals. They are bilingual, nationwide, and waiting for your call. They could be reached at 631-714-4822. And now that we got that out of the way, we are in studio today with a longtime friend of mine and real estate expert, Ed Jarvis. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
It's so funny because you and I talk all the time offline. We see each other out and about in the community. We're both big into philanthropy, but I've never had you on the show before.
It was funny because when you called, I was thinking, I don't think I've ever been on the show.
So timing worked itself out. So thank you so much for joining us in studio. I love when people come in. We do a lot of remote where our guests come in, from other places, but there's nothing better than when somebody's right in front of you.
I agree.
So let's talk a little bit about your longevity in the real estate industry and what is your prediction for 2024?
So I've been in real estate for 31 years. I've been at ReMax for 30 years. And the market's definitely shifting, with the rates going up and everything, but there's a lot of foreclosures in the pipeline, a lot of things changing in the business and the industry. I got to imagine a lot of people are going to be getting out of the industry, and then which make my life a little easier.
I was just going to say, we've had that conversation before with other people. Right now, I should say last week we had a guest on, Dennis McGrath, who's one of the attorneys we work with. And Dennis was saying that he's actually seeing an upshift in purchase and sales agreements that for a while it was really slow, right? Much slower. But now he said with the rates being where they are, it's now the new norm.
Well, what happened was last year at the end of the year, we had that hack into the system of Suffolk, so you couldn't even get a closing because you couldn't get a title. So that was a big problem. So even if you sold something, you couldn't get it closed. So now that's resolved, thank God, and, we seem to be moving forward. And I think, when you look at the rates, they're still not horrific, but are they where they were? No, but I was in a market when I first got in, it was 14%.
And it's funny because I know that I bought my first house in 1996, and I think I paid somewhere around 8.5%, 9% at that time. And then we got spoiled, right? So when originally when the market crashed, and then we had, all of the modification programs and the interest rates went down, and people got very accustomed for a long period of time paying 2% to 4% as an interest rate.
The problem is there's a lot of those people that are still not paying, which are now coming back around, which they did a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is now those people are not underwater because they're in a different market. So
we're seeing, at least I see on my side with the clients, it's trying to reset the expectation. And I think for a while with the clients that we were seeing, they were angry with the interest rate increase. They were angry at their mortgage brokers. They were angry with their realtors as if the entire world was stacked up against them and they were not meant to buy. But now those clients are coming back and they're saying, I understand I may pay 6%, 7%, even 8%. And what Dennis was saying is that's the new norm. What are you seeing with your clients?
I've been seeing still a lot of overbidding, which is also having a problem because sometimes now the appraisals are not coming in. So then you're seeing dead deals. So, you got to be careful who you pick.
When you are talking about overbidding, obviously, for those that are listening, you have a client that put a house on the market for $300,000. Somebody bid $325,000 because they're tired of looking, right? And they just want to settle down at this point.
They're like, they don't even want to deal with it. They're like, I got to get this house somehow, somewhere.
Yeah, I need to move. My kids need to start school. And what we're seeing is that, let's just take that $325,000 offer. What we're seeing at this particular point is the overbidding is fine because traditionally they could afford the extra $13 or $18 a month that it would cost, but they may not have the appropriate cash to make that transaction possible.
And a lot of them, they put in the contract, you have to have the cash in advance because otherwise then you can't close.
How are those clients, like, so let's just take a client that's happened to you, and we are going through the motions, and now you have to deliver that news to the client. The house didn't appraise, but we warned you. Again, it goes back to accountability. What we see a lot of times is people not being accountable to what they actually have to do. You've signed a contract that said, I acknowledge that I will come up with the additional funds in the event of, and now that client turns around and says what?
It's not an option. You don't have a choice. Once you sign a contract, it's a legal binding contract. You have to finish the deal, whether you like it or not. Because you signed it, that's what it was said. If they don't put that language in the contract, then it's not a problem. Then you got to go back to the homeowner and negotiate and try to work it out. But I haven't had that happen in neither situation, thank God. But it does happen.
When we're working with the homeowners right now, another thing we're seeing an uptick with, and you mentioned it, is foreclosures. Are you noticing that the foreclosures are straight foreclosures, or are you seeing that the foreclosures are still short sales? They're
doing both. I actually had one that I thought was a regular sale, and as it turned out, when we got all the payoffs from the two banks, that they were $54,000 short. Now I got to go back in, renegotiate with two banks, and get them to accept less. And, it does happen, but it's work and, it costs money. But we get it done. But it's, it's just a little harder work. But for the homeowner, we try to do the best that we can to help them. I'm like a lighthouse. I'm trying to navigate people through the sea of badness, and trying to get them to what they need. At the end of the day, everybody wants what they need.
Now, you said something when we got started, which is that with the market the way that it is, there may potentially be people exiting the real estate industry. And of course, that's delightful for you because there's less professionals bidding for the same opportunities. Are you seeing that the people that are still there in your real estate professional space, are they the professionals? Like, has the cream, risen to the top at this point?
The top always stays at the top. Even in the bad market, it's tough because it's, you get used to a certain norm like everything else. Like I said, there was some challenges last year with everything else that's going on. Me personally, I was getting divorced, so that was challenging. But you get back in the game and you do what you got to do to make money because you can't afford to make less. Not to live in Long Island, you can't.
And that's another thing in itself. We see a lot of people that are looking at purchasing property, but part of the holdback, at least again from clients that I speak to, is the rising cost of property taxes. Or they can afford their principal and interest payment. What they can't afford is their insurance and their taxes.
Well, the other problem is, which people were doing in droves were going to Florida, but now have ceased because what's happening, the property taxes have gone up there. They're also having a problem with insurance. So now those people that were going to go to Florida are staying here going, I can't afford to go to Florida because the prices are as much as they are here.
Something else that we talked about, earlier today was the cost of rent.
The cost of rent is astronomical. You go to some of these places and you're like $3,750 for under 1,500 square foot space. And a one bedroom on the average is over $2,100 here in Long Island, which is very expensive for somebody that can't afford it.
I just don't understand how I almost don't even know how to say it. It baffles me to see how the rents are so high. And I'm a landlord, right? So I'm a landlord looking at what the market rent is going for, but I also know the tenants that I currently have. And I just feel like there's an unjust imbalance for what somebody can get. They're just cash poor, if you're looking at just these housing expenses.
Well, the problem is that the credit cards are going off the grid because everybody is spending even though they can't afford it. And the problem is, when you do that, it's a problem. And, when things are down, it makes it harder because you can't make that extra money. And not everybody seems to be wanting to work harder either.
That's a whole other segment.
Yeah. That's a 2-segment session.
That's a 2-segment. You know, and the big joke, you know, I think, as you know, people say to me, you know, what do you do? I grind at one speed, fast and hard, right? Follow the momentum. But I have met so many people, and again, they have this victim mentality. And again, especially you being in that real estate space, I deal with the same clients as you, and it's a victim mentality. Why did it happen to me? Why is this happening to me? It's not fair. There's very limited accountability, I find, with a lot of the people that we're servicing.
The funny part is, the worse the market, typically the better I do, because the people that work hardest find a way. The people that don't want to work get out of the business.
You're like, move over, Ed Jarvis is here.
Slide over, the rhinos moving in.
which I love. I think that I attract other hardworking people, which is probably why you and I, get along.
Oh yeah,
along so well.
We love the fundraising aspect. I tell people all the time, I'm always going to fundraisers, and even that's been down because there just isn't the amount of events there, or it was because they can't afford it.
And you're hitting on a good spot. So on that note, if you are looking to support a local charity, stay tuned, because one of our guests today is going to be Patricia Peterson with Angels of Long Island. With that said, I am going to exit this segment. Once again, you are tuned in to the Credit Authority, and we are speaking with real estate professional Ed Jarvis of ReMax. Stay tuned. We're getting ready to bring you our next guest.